It's go back to the fundamental, right? Look at the infrastructure that existed prior to mobile in terms of landlines. It was virtually zero, right? You had to apply for a landline. You waited for years for the landline to come. It would never happen. If you look at the developed markets like Europe, landline is still a preferred form of communication. Africa, there was nothing. So immediately as soon as mobile came, people grabbed it. And even if you look at right now, penetration is still about 45–46%. So still there's a huge upside. So that's really why mobile developed as a medium. And then obviously there is, money mobile. If you look at countries like Kenya, 11% of Kenya's GDP goes through M-Pesa right now, through mobile money, which is again very high. And companies like Safaricom have been a lot more innovative in coming up with different, ideas in terms of how to use mobile as a business tool. So I think this is where mobile has suddenly come up everywhere. And if you look today in terms of our business, 50% of ad spend across most markets in Sub-Sahara is the telco sector. That includes mobile phones, people like Samsung, Nokia, and the operators, MTN, Airtel, Vodafone, Tigo, etc. And the reason is because there is a huge opportunity and they're all busy just growing. Last year, for instance, in Tanzania, the mobile market grew by about 35–36%. That's huge. You won't see those numbers anywhere. Even detergent won't be growing by that number. So it's a big growth opportunity, and it has obviously it came because there was a desired need, because there was no communication infrastructure. It's a very interesting question. And again, if you look at the fundamental, look at Africa 20 years ago, right? Or let's look at Africa 35, or let's look at Africa 40–50 years ago. We had the colonials. You had the British, you had the Portuguese, you had the French, you had the Dutch, etc. When they left, pretty stable regimes in place. And if you look at some of the old chaps who started running these regimes, the intent was always very pure. A lot of these were nationalistic leaders, Julius Nyerere, Kamuzu Banda, etc., Jomo Kenyatta, very nationalistic leaders. And the intent was good, they brought education, etc., etc. But then what happened was people around them started seeing greed, opportunity, and so you started seeing military coups, dictatorships, etc., etc. There was a lot of disruption. When that disruption happened, it destabilized complete societies. Countries like Angola were in war for 20 years. There was no education, kids were not going to school, no medical facilities. So two things happened. A lot of deprivation, but a lot of the elite class moved out. Settled in South Africa, settled in Paris, settled in Belgium, UK, wherever. They moved out because they had the money and the means to move out. Now, if you look at the situation, there is a lot more democracy. Political, social, economic reforms have come back, have taken a very significant changes happened. And you look at countries like Angola, Mozambique. These countries you couldn't go to these markets. DRC, it was hostile countries. Nigeria was a difficult market as well. So in the last 10–15 years, there's been a lot of political reform and all of that, which has meant that there's a new breed of consumers that have come up. A lot of these are diasporas, a lot of people who are studying abroad. A lot of politicians send their kids out abroad to study. They brought them back now. A lot of them have been back for the last 8–10 years. And then the digital revolution came. So what happened was, if you now go to Maputo, if you go to Lagos, if you go to Nairobi, you go to a nightclub at night and you see the young people, you see their dress sense, you look at the sophistication, and you look at any club in Europe and you think you are there, right? So what has happened is that you have this new generation of consumers who have suddenly been liberalized and are saying to themselves, I can succeed, I can reach for the stars because the economic environment in the country now enables me to do that. So I want to be ahead, I want to succeed. Where do I get information from? And therefore they are the ones who are very interactive, they engage on social media, they are very tech savvy, right? And the phone is the only tool that enables them to do that. And if you look here, 50% of all internet online is done via mobile phones. If you look at a market like Nigeria, you've got about 4.5 million Facebook users, majority of them accessing via the mobile phones.